video is over adding integers. I'm going to show you how to add integers using two colored counters, and then we're going to lead that into the rules that we use for adding integers. So remember, integers are positive and negative whole numbers, no decimals, no fractions. We're going to use a circle with a plus sign to represent positive and a circle with a negative sign to represent negatives. I'm going to use black and red, and if you want to do that, you can get a different color out for your negatives. So the first thing we're going to do is represent the first number in our problem. So on my first problem, 3 plus 2, the first number I see is 3, so I'm going to represent that by drawing 3 positive circles. Now I'm adding to that 2 more positives, so I'm going to put those underneath. And then my answer is what I have total. I have 5 positives, so my answer is 5. The same thing works is if you're adding 2 negatives. So a negative 4 is what I start with. I'm going to add to that 2 more negatives. And now I have a total of negative 6. Now it gets a bit more interesting whenever we have a positive and a negative number. So we're going to start with the basic, positive 1, and I'm going to add to that a negative 1. Now, what do y'all think this equals? If you guessed 0, you would be correct. This is called a 0 pair. 1 positive and 1 negative makes 0. It's a 0 pair. Now we're going to use that as we move forward. So on my next example, I'm starting with 6 positives. And I'm going to add to that 3 negatives. Now you should see that I have some 0 pairs. I have 3 0 pairs. So I'm going to take away those 3 0 pairs, and what I'm left with is my answer. So I'm left with positive 3. Now, this is an addition problem, but I just subtracted, okay? So whenever we have positives and negatives, we are actually subtracting. It's very, very cool. All right, so let's do another one. Let's say I start with 2 positives, and I add to that 5 negatives. How many 0 pairs can I make? 2 0 pairs, so subtract the 2 0 pairs, and I'm left with 3 negatives, negative 3. Now, I want you to notice that on these 2 problems, when I subtracted, I basically subtracted 6 minus 3, and I got 3. And then my answer was positive because I started with more positives than negatives. So there were more positives left over after the subtraction happened. On this problem, we did 5 minus 2, right? We had 5, we took away 2, and we got 3. But I ended up with a negative answer because there are more negatives. All right, so that's kind of that is our rule for adding integers with different signs. Let's do a couple. Actually, I want to go over those rules, which you should glue those into your journal. They're on the blue counter. So if we have integers with the same sign, so a positive plus a positive or a negative plus a negative, we add the numbers and we keep the sign. Very simple. I'm taking positives and putting them together so they stay positive. I'm taking negatives and putting them together, they stay negative. But if we have different signs, a positive and a negative, we are actually going to subtract the numbers because we're creating 0 pairs, and then we keep the sign of the one that has more. All right, so my first example, negative 15 plus negative 10, these are the same sign. They're both positive, so we add and keep the sign. 15 plus 10 is 25, and we keep the negative sign, negative 25. All right, on my next example, negative 8 plus 40. These are different signs. One is positive, one is negative, different signs. So I subtract 40 minus 8. That gives me 32. And I keep the sign of the one with more, There's more positives, so it's a positive 32. All right, negative 27 plus 5. I have a negative and I have a positive. That's different signs. I'm going to subtract 27 minus 5. Gives me 22. Okay, which one has more? More negatives. So it's a negative 22. And the last one, negative 9 plus negative 6. These are the same sign. They're both negative, so we add 9 plus 6 because they're both negative. We end up with 15, and we keep the negative sign. All right, put these examples into your journal, and we'll work on it more tomorrow.